Hello, hello, hello. So we are live and I'm going to go straight ahead. I have two cameras on me, my laptop and this one. So what is this live about? I don't know if I can write what it's about first. Can I? No. Okay. Hello. Okay, it's going to be in English, sorry. Last May, I asked a poll and I asked how much do you feel like you're being listened to? And 75% of you said that you felt like no one listened to you. And I think that's pretty, I found it pretty shocking actually, but I think we all kind of feel like we're not being listened to. And then I sort of researched into it a little bit and it's definitely something that I found when I researched about the goddess circles or women's circles is that we crave being listened to, but it's something that we're not very good at. So this is what did I call this? The death of listening. So that's what kind of I started. Hello, hello, hello. So that's why I started the goddess circles, because I really needed a place to listen, to be listened to, and I needed a feminine environment to be listened to, and which I was craving because before I started doing ski seasons, I actually had quite a lot of girlfriends. I had like one guy friend, he knows who he is, and here being in the mountains, I'm just surrounded by dudes. It's a massive sausage fest. So yeah, that's why I started the goddess circles, and the whole listening thing I found really interesting. So hello, Daddy May Tian. I don't know what your name is, but that's your Instagram name. Hi. So I listened to a podcast and by Kate Murphy, and she is a author and a journalist, and she has written for The Economist and the New York Times, I believe. So obviously being a reporter, it's one of those jobs that do require a lot of listening. And interestingly, I have a friend who was really, really good at listening. He's in Australia, he's American, and maybe he'll remember, but I was a little drunk and I was saying to him that although I crave being listened to, I just said that, he listens so well, he's such a good listener, that it would actually kind of throw me off because I couldn't just say, I felt like if I'd talked to him, then he'd really listen to what I said. So I don't know, I guess it made me feel really self-conscious, but perhaps that just showed my insecurity. So anyway, Kate Murphy wrote a book about the kind of the you're not listening. And she says, we're listening to each other often. No, we're listening to each other less often and for shorter periods of time than ever before. And that research shows that making us lonely, less tolerant, and more isolated. So I'll repeat, Kate Murphy, who wrote a book about listening, she says, we're listening to each other less often and for shorter periods than ever before. And that research shows that making us making us lonely, less tolerant, and more isolated. And perhaps the pandemic sort of showed that for a lot of people that we really, I mean, even if you're a massive introvert, you still need to be around certain people to, I mean, we needed it as human beings to survive, right? So we're not built like lone male monkeys. We are built to be around each other and to listen. So, but listening is hard if you're a very chatty person. Might not be so hard if you are very an introvert. So I was listening to this podcast while I was doing chores, and this is kind of a research for the goddess circles. And she also talks about the sort of MRI scans on brains. So she says, Kate Murphy says, when I talk to neuroscientists, they could actually show me on fMRI brain scans what happened between the speaker and the listener at that moment of understanding and connection, when you're sort of talking and listening to each other. Their brain waves, their neutral patterns actually sync up. So when we talk about being totally in sync with someone, that's actually true. As a result, chemicals like oxytocin, feel-good chemicals, and are released that cause you to attach and feel bonded to people. And by virtue of evolution, you see that's how actually it has worked to our advantage, because those moments of connection are what helps us understand one another, to really pass big ideas back and forth. And that's how we cooperated on a level that allowed us to hunt woolly mammoth and fly to the moon. So I thought it was a really nice quote. So essentially, listening is an extremely important part of our relationships, old and new. So perhaps you get frustrated if you are talking to someone and you're there listening to them, but perhaps they're not listening to you. And that's really frustrating. So it's a both way. Like, can you learn to be a better listener, but can you also how do you get it back? So she didn't really go for anything very action taking for listening, but she didn't mention this, but essentially, to be a better listener, you have to just listen and not give advice, and then not say I this, I that, which is really hard, because innately we are quite self-centered, and we do tend to sort of think more about ourselves when we're talking to another person. So that's a bit of a difficulty, but that's a tip for you. So tip number 1 for be a better listener is to not make the conversation about yourself when that person's talking, and just to listen to them. So through this podcast, and it kind of really resonated with me, so I thought I'd share it. That's why I'm not making this into a story and into a live. So again, I talked about the giving advice, but just listening. So this is something that I found a lot in when I created the goddess circles, or in women, it's a women's circle. This time last year, there was a lot of grieving over lost plans, the certainty. I mean, we're still there, but perhaps the shock has worn off. And personally, I lost my father, so there was just a lot of intense emotions that I really needed to deal with in an open environment. Like, I'm a very open person most of the time. I can be a bit stubborn in my strength, but I do want to talk about things. So I'm a little bit deep, and that's just how it is, and that's what I was looking for. And with the goddess circles we did in Miyoko, it really was the most amazing part, is really listening to each other, especially when we're one-on-one. I mean, we didn't really have very strict COVID restrictions in Japan, and we're a bit isolated here, as you can see. Maybe you can't, but I live in the forest. It was nice to sit, and what we would do is I would do a meditation, I would set a theme, and in the goddess circles in real life, we would then go through what the theme and how it resonated. And I would always start. Eventually, I actually got therapy, and it always happened to be before the full moon and the goddess circles, so I felt less and less of a need to share my issues, because I'd already taught them through with a therapist that I was, paying for privately, which I know I'm very privileged to be able to do, but I really needed it. And your mental health is really important. It is a very, very important investment, more than that thing that you want off of the internet. You're more important. So, So I can't quite do this with the online goddess circles because of, especially because it's brand new, and unless I get people returning and stuff. But obviously I'm going to add in an option to be able to just talk freely and to listen, maybe like a few minutes if anyone wants to raise their hands, which is really awkward. And I did find that was a bit hard for people to get through. So now I'm making it more around the, hi, Alex, I was just talking about you. Well, you probably didn't know. And, crap, what was I talking about? So now we do, in the goddess circles, we do kind of more of a, it's a little bit less intense because it's more about the moon, and then it's more reflection with journaling and self-reflection. It's more self-reflection. So I'm holding the space for you to reflect by yourself. You don't have to talk, which I think a lot of people found better. 1 second. Laptop charger just fell out. Hello. And then, so moving on. Oh yeah, that was also another thing about the podcast about listening. So this is a live about listening if you're watching, and finding that someone else has nothing to say. And I have for sure said it. I'm going to admit it. I have said to um, my spouse, my husband, like, oh, they're boring, like they have nothing to say. And I really love what she said in the podcast that intimacy takes time, trust takes time. And some people are way more introverted, they're more reserved. And for me, being a really open, emotionally open person, it's really hard for me to understand. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just my strength is my openness and I'd like to say I'm a good communicator. I speak 3 languages, and if you talk to me, I'll probably make you feel very comfortable because I've moved around and it's a survival mechanism. So yeah, finding that someone else has nothing to say is just that maybe you're not listening. We've all judged someone for being boring, and that's fine. But just again, it comes back to like you listening. Another one that I thought was interesting was we tune out when those we are closest to. So which if you have housemates, or you live with your family, or you are married, or in a relationship of any form, it's true. You do tend to get very impatient with the person you're closest to, and you don't give them as much time to talk because of this sort of sense of impatience that you just want to hear what they said, you probably know what they're going to say, and then you just want to fix it. So it goes back to point number 1 of, can you just listen and not make it about yourself and give advice? So if you are in a relationship, friendship, family, relationship of some sort, what I have found really, really helpful with my spouse anyway, is to say, if he's venting or if I want to vent, just to communicate, I just want to vent, just let me vent, or I have this problem, please just can you give me some feedback? So yeah, that's a really important one. And oh yeah, technology. So how technology, ironically you're on your phone or on a device watching this right now, but I'm sure you've noticed that when you are at a restaurant or you're out and about, which I know for some of you being in some mega lockdowns has probably not been so common, but maybe even having dinner with someone else, you have your phone on. And she said that actually research has shown that having your phone on, if you're on your phone or you're having a conversation, you are not going to have as deep a conversation as if you are going to put your phone even turned off or on flight mode or away, you're going to have much deeper conversations. So if you're someone that's looking to create better relationships and communications with someone else, just try and turn off your phone or put it in your handbag or just don't have it on you. And I know it's really hard. I'm really addicted to my phone. I mean, I'm on Instagram right now or filming. And but it's something I'm aware of and I'm working towards. But certainly when I try and have dinner or when I'm talking to someone, I'm hanging out with other people, I try really hard not to even have my phone on me. I'm just like an all or nothing kind of person. I can't just have it a little bit. Just got to do it. So, another thing that she did mention about listening is it's very interesting how we will pay someone to listen to us. So whether you are, I mean, I've had therapy last year and it did help, or you have a coach or even a hairdresser. So a lot of people tend to really, I guess it's all about you when you go to the hairdressers, right? So it just gives you that moment to really be, to really talk and be open, and you feel sort of listened to. So, there is Jenny who cuts hair here, and she did say that she used to have to really be, it's not just physically on your feet and you're cutting people's hair, it's also the pressure of cutting someone's hair, but also that you want them to like it, you want them to come back as a customer, but also there's the pressure of making that that connection with someone else and talking to them. Interestingly in Japan though, is that you can actually ask, there's a form on the hairdressers thing where it says like, I don't want to talk, which I think is great because I don't always want to tell everybody my life story. I get really bored of having to tell people the multiple countries where I've lived and where my parents are from and all that sort of crap, and it's really exhausting. So, sometimes you don't want to be listened to. But it's an Aquarius thing to not want to go deep and not so like on the surface level. So just saying, it's an astrological thing. So yeah, I'm just really loving this topic about listening. It's really something I haven't heard much of, but that I felt a very strong pull towards. And I haven't really heard of it much in the wellness world. But I think that for our mental well-being and for our relationships, it is so, so, so important. So yeah, I'm putting it on my subject of things to talk about, listening. And I'm going to try really hard to be a better listener, because I have a very short attention span, and I'm the sort of person that will cut you off mid-sentence because I have an idea and I really want to say it, and if I don't say it now, I'll forget. So I'm not perfect at doing this, and I think that's why I've picked up on these little intricacies in the podcast and wanted to talk about it. So yeah, anyway, talking back again to the goddess circles, I started them essentially because I really wanted someone to listen to me, I wanted to listen to them. I'm quite an empathetic, is that a word, person. I like to hear what other people have to say, and yeah, the goddess circles really were like a feminine space, a safe feminine space to really gather and to listen to one another and to express ourselves. So yeah, essentially that is it. And if you are keen to join the goddess circles, I have just rechanged my website to the waiting list is now open. So if you email that, you'll be put on the waiting list. And around the new moon, which is the 10th of June, I'll be announcing the date for the goddess circle, which I'll probably do sometimes the week around the full moon, but most probably around the weekend, probably on a Sunday. But I'm not making any decisions yet because I'm just preparing to get that out there again. So thank you so much for joining me live, and I hope that you enjoyed this. The lighting is fabulous, and thank you so much for listening. And that's it. So if you have any questions about goddess circles, or if you have anything to say about listening, are there any tips you have to be a better listener? My stepdad's always said you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I think that means, listen more than you have to talk, which is funny because he talks a lot. So so that's it. Thank you so much. Sayonara. Goodbye. Goodbye.